Yeah, it's your boy Ray on the mic. Let's go.
And so what I've been processing, because your boy loves alliterations, I wanted to create 5 A's that we can take and leverage when we are practicing diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives within this culture, within this time where DE&I feels like it's attacked and almost dead, right? So let's dive into these 5 A's. First A that I want to give to you all is agreement. We have to have a shared understanding of what it is being accomplished. We have to be in agreement that the efforts that we are doing in the DE&I space is on the same page with the leaders that we're associated with, the staff that we're connected to, communities that we're looking to serve, the stakeholders who have a hand in how we're producing this work. Because if the agreement is off, or the agreement is in the negatives, right? Like if we're not gonna reach 100% consensus, but if we are like 60 or we're at like 30, that's ugly, right? If we're at 30% agreement, ain't nothing moving, right? We need to be able to be in a position where we're all agree on what safety looks like for everybody. We need to be in agreement on what transparency looks like, or agreement on our principles, or an agreement on the goals that we set for ourselves. And when we are in that state of agreement, it becomes easier to see how we can collaborate and help one another in that space. But if we go into there with a little bit of defensiveness or standing at odds, it becomes hard for one another to see the other perspective inside, and then we just do not be able to move forward, because all we would be able to do is see each other's faults and not see each other's as on the same side and on the same team. Our agreement is important and key, and you get those by making sure that you just step into the space and know that we all are human and we all have something that we're going towards together, and you develop the relationship and ask the questions to know what is the true desire, and find those connection points between your efforts and initiatives in the DEI space to their efforts and initiatives in the business space, and show that this is one and the same and not separate or at odds. Which leads to the second A, articulation. Having the ability to communicate what you need and why you need it in the language that makes sense to them. There are individuals out there that need to understand the difference between equality and equity, right? That yes, we all want to strive for equality. We want everybody to have the same experience when we get into the work, or we get into the world and we get into our communities. But we have to understand that not everybody has even started from the same space. So we have to make sure that we provide people an opportunity to start from a position that would give them the leverage needed to be at the same level that we're trying to get everybody toward, right? Which is the difference between equity and equality. And so those discussions and how you share that and how you communicate that can give you an opportunity to help your initiative stay and continue into the workspace. So now we've talked a little bit about, you got to be in agreement of what you're going towards and the goals that you have. You need to make sure you find a way to articulate your message in a way that will stick and make sense. And then the third A, you have to be in alignment with what concepts in the business space are associated with the diversity and inclusion space, okay? Now, being in the business world, we need to understand that it's a whole new world. It's a whole language, with KPIs, OKRs, SMEs, I don't know, whatever, pick your acronym, right? And that's just in the general business space, but then each industry has its own ways to approach a problem or solution and how they go about doing that. And each institution also has strategic goals that they need to meet to appease and to meet the standards of their stakeholders or their constituents that they're looking to serve, or who has graced them to say, yes, this is the things that we are going after this year. As the DEI concepts, we have to make sure that we tie those leverages or tie those concepts to what the business is driving towards. For example, and this is the one I'm diving more deeper into, we want to build inclusive communities where every identity belongs and thrives. This is what I believe. This is what I want to do. doing that, there's many different ways to do so, right? So if I was to go up into an organization and say, yo, I want to make sure that all your leaders are equipped to create inclusive communities where every identity belongs and thrives, someone would be like, great, do you? Someone would be like, how you gonna do that? I'm like, or another group will be like, okay, so you do that to what end? Like, what is the end goal? Yeah, there's many end goals to that, right? You can do, depending on the industry, depending on the work, depending on what's happening, there's many end goals to that. So that serves to be in the business space, in the business industries, really ineffective when it comes to our ability to execute on the goals. Is that right? There's a place to it, but I don't think it necessarily is something that we just need to completely dismantle and throw away. We just have to understand and adapt, adapt to it so we can leverage our skill sets to marry both DE&I and business so that we can show up through our fullest selves if we want to and create these belonging workplace cultures that are practicing justice, right? So fourth A is access. So how do we receive the necessary resource to be successful in this space? So as practitioners who are looking to align ourselves into the DE&I space, if we are by employee retention as our model and focus, okay, so how do we have the right access to ensure that a retention is there based upon these demographics? So what's the data look like? Do we have resources to understand the recruitment strategies or the employee surveys or the documentation or the trainings necessary to equip our leaders or equip our staff to retain, to feel like they have a place of well-being and belonging and to thrive, right? So that way the staff could be retained within the workspace. The leaders or the institutions or practitioners in this space have to create a database or a pool or know where their connection points are to incorporate that as part of their resource tool belt and deploy those things when the time comes. So utilizing the websites such as SHRM, any website really that is talking about employee retention, but HR data trends that are geared towards the industry, and then what is happening within the organization. And then again, looking at what's going on socioeconomically with our demographics, tying those three things together and multiple others and the people and the resources around it to say, one, do we have access to it? And two, how did this information help us create the right strategy geared towards the right goals that align towards the way the institutions and our society is going to when it comes to DE&I, right? So those are elements that we have to identify. And then the last A, when it comes to being effective within this space, is accountability. I talked about accountability multiple times. I'm gonna practice this in this video right here. And accountability is a key element, one of the key elements in our leadership that is necessary if we want to see change and sustain the change that we're looking to create. If we continue through the model of seeing how does accountability fit in aligning DE&I and business concepts when it comes to employee retention, we talked about the importance of data, and the data helps in knowing where we are and where we need to go, right? Some people say data is like the scoreboard. If you're a sports fan, it's the scoreboard to know where the game, what's going on in the game. And most times, you know, as a former athlete, you could look up in the scoreboard and be, okay, if we're down by 6, there's 30 seconds left in the game, we're gonna need to go into 2-minute drill so that way we can drive the ball down to the field and try to get to score before the game goes out, right? Simple example, 2-minute drill for football. So being mindful, we're held to a certain standard when we are supposed to create these culture change and change elements within our institution. That standard needs to be something that we have to create for ourselves, that we have to understand from those above us, and we have to make sure that we have some standards that we set for those around us too, to say, hey, if I'm following this, you need to follow this as well. So if my goal is to make sure I understand all DEI concepts and how it relates to employee retention, your goal is to make sure that you have all the necessary information and data related to employee retention, and we create the space to practice these things and take the initiatives to create this environment for our staff. And if that establishment isn't there, if people aren't holding up their end of the bargain, we lose trust, we lose funding, people lose their positions and jobs, and folks are moving on because then they say, this didn't work. And it's like, but we give it a chance? And their eyes, if I say yes, but we didn't go through every aspect, my 5 A's, to see if we actually give this a chance, right? So accountability is the main thing that has to be defined and documented when it comes to our ability to have effective change within the institution, okay? So let's quickly run this back. As a practitioner within this space, I'm giving you 5 A's to work through to help you stay and sustain and thrive as a DE&I practitioner with these institutions and not have your programs get cut, because that's not what we need right now. So the 5 A's, you need to be in agreement with the people around you and your leaders and understand what it is that they're going towards and being sure that you are on the same page in what you agree on, regardless of what's going on around you. You have to make sure that you have the right articulation and the words and the verbiage to help understand and help them understand the goals that you're striving towards, and lose the jargon that will lose people and confuse them on how your efforts and initiatives are going to be of value to them. You need to be in alignment by understanding the strategic strategies of the institution and tie those to the DEI concepts and be able to map where and how and why it is important for us to follow these concepts in order to meet these organizational goals. Then we need to be able to have the right access to right resources to be able to achieve our goals fast and achieve our goals well, and understand from, again, back to the articulation piece, how those resources will be better fit to support you in your efforts moving forward. And then lastly, you need to hold accountability, being able to understand the metrics, the data, and tracking those things, the behaviors, the expectations, the standards that you are setting for yourself, but having the ability to hold those similar standards to the people around you so that success can happen in this work that we're doing. All right. And those are the 5 A's that I want you all to embody when it comes to any type of leadership change initiatives, but especially those who are DEI practitioners in this space. Now, that ain't easy. It's going to take some work, but it's work that's needed if we want to see communities where every identity belongs and thrives. And I want to be a resource to help you all navigate these things and help you guide those things as well. And I have a link in the show notes where we can have a conversation in the chat to talk through what are some of the change initiatives that you're working towards. How especially are you creating a more employee retention strategy in this DEI lens and create a pathway to help you retain your staff with this equity lens in mind? Or if you just need somebody to kind of double check the work and double check and have somebody to talk to that's outside of your workspace to help you just be another guide and listening ear to the efforts, I want to be here for you. You can click the link in the show notes and we can guide you to see what's the right effort for you moving forward in that way. In addition, in this episode, I will be also dropping some takeaways as well that you can take, a 1-page takeaway that you can take from this episode as action items, an action plan, if you will, to help guide you in this space. And so that way, if you're listening and you're like, all right, I didn't take notes or I missed a certain part, don't trip. I got an action plan that I can give you as well. You can download that in the show notes as well. Please like and subscribe to this episode, this podcast, as this is a way to help me provide these thoughts, insights, and resources to help support you on your equity journey. And we'll love to hear your thoughts on this episode by putting in the comments, or tell a friend and tell a friend. You can also follow me at Ray Devante on all social media platforms. Follow me on LinkedIn at Raymond D. White, and the On the Micro 3 podcast on your favorite podcasting app. All the places you can find me, I'll be there. But more importantly, I want to see you succeed. I want you to create communities where every identity belongs and thrives. So continue to share your story with others. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.